Welcome to the Great British Pinball Podcast, and here are your hosts Scott Rundell and Neil McRae.
Welcome, everybody, pinball players of the world. This is a kind of a part two or a special. Let's call it a special. All about Texas Pinball Festival. As you remember, kind of episode 9, part 1 and 2. We kind of did an intro with Colin and Paul, who've kindly joined us again. And we're just going to, let basically folks talk. I'm always overjoyed to be joined by my partner in crime,
Scott Rundle. Thank you very much.
And then we're joined by Paul.
Hello.
And Colin. And
good evening.
I've already gone off script. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna just talk, pinball and a few of the stuff that we did. I'm gonna go direct to Colin and just let him kind of do a bit of a brain dump on us all, and the rest of us will chip in appropriately or inappropriately as we think. So, Colin, over to you.
Hi, all. So, a few thoughts on Texas. First off, just to sum it all up. It was an absolute hoot and an awesome experience. I've never been to Texas. I've been everywhere in America, just about, but I found it a fantastic, crazy place, full of gun crazy taxi drivers, gun crazy Pin4 members. We'll come to the new name, Dangerous Dave. I'll come up on that one. So what can I say? Right from the very off, good bunch of lads, good group. We all gelled well. And I got to know people I hadn't met in person a lot better than I previously known them just over the phone and stuff. So the day of Texas, the festival itself, I'll try and kick this short. Somebody's bright spark idea was to try and sneak in 4 hours early. And I says, well, I'm up for some of that. I'll have some of that. So we went round the back. And I think it was about 6 of us wandered in, pretending we were helping to set up to be visited by all the machines were on play. So I walked up and there was 8 Pulp Fictions. I'd never played the game, so I just walked straight up, played the game. I could play it as long as I wanted. And I thought, right, I'm going to jump around all the pins quick as I can. We pretty much split up, but then I started to get a bit starstruck. I bumped into Carrie Hardy. Nice. Lovely chap. Oh, everyone, by the way, everybody who I bumped into, the list longer than my arm, and I'll miss some out, but I had Mark Ritchie, John Borg, Gomez, Carrie Hardy I've mentioned, Seth Davis, Chris Branchy, David Fix, and someone, we'll call him the deleted member of the forum, said to me, be careful what you wish for when you meet your heroes. Can I just say, I was blown away by each and every one of them. Good. They had time to talk. They took time out. They were interested in me as much as I was interested in them. And of course, I've got to mention the unbelievable Steve Ritchie, my biggest hero of all time. First time I met that guy, I went back and talked to him a couple of times. He can talk as much as me. So we had some
more, I think.
Yeah. What a lovely bloke. He's a little deaf, so I found myself shouting in his ear a lot.
Yeah.
But I guess that's all of the years of crazy, mind-blowing music and pinball sphere. So by the time the show actually opened, I'd had me fill on all the new machines. And I was quite impressed with a number of titles. Do you want me to give Game of the Show away, or should we leave that for later?
I tell you what I'd like to hear, Cole, is your first impressions. So what was your first impression of Pulp Fiction like?
Because it's been hyped up so much for me personally, I think it didn't have that wow factor for me. I'm being totally honest here, but that changes as the show went on the third day. It really did blow me away, but it wasn't my game of the show. So the first game I had on it was like, meh. I had another game, pretty brutal, walked away from it, jumped onto, I forget, I think it was Jaws, to be honest, which I'll try and avoid this subject, was a game I wished I really wanted to hate with a vengeance.
Okay.
You know, I was dissing 2 games over the past 6 months. I've got to get this out of the way because Neil's going to do it anyway.
This is glorious.
But as soon as Venom was dropped, I was like, my God, what have they done? They've stripped this thing out, which they kind of have with a Pro, is my opinion.
Okay.
And I thought the same of Jaws, the very same of the Jaws. They've took that play field out. The drop targets, I love drop targets with a vengeance. There's that kinetic feel, what you get off a drop target, can it be reproduced on these stand-up targets?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of, the way the ball reflects off a stand-up target next to a drop target, all day for me, drop targets. So that's one of the big things about premiums and pros when they drop them out.
You love to like bash stuff out of the way, you know.
Yeah. And
it's kind of a weird feeling, but drop target is one of my favorite things in pinball.
And a must, and it really is a must. You know, they need to get.
It's a shame that they're so unreliable. That's the reason why I think on the pros they don't have them, because they have a tendency to break. That's my experience.
So on site, I get that. On site, I want nothing that breaks, so don't put anything in it. And that was my view of Jaws. You know, from the very offset, it's like, well, what you're shooting at, it's just a barren sea with nothing there. I take all that back. I take it all back.
Really?
I played the premium, and I was like, wow. All of us were wow. And we were playing 4-player games on the premium, and I've got to be honest, I never touched a pro. I was like, that's not for me.
Just why do you think that? Not just the drop targets, was it the upper playfield? Was there more to it, or?
I like to see something for your money. I'm all for the bling. The more, you know, I'm an LE person. Sure. I've dropped out of that because of the cost. I've kind of dropped out the premiums because of the cost. Neither were with Seth Davis, is it the Stern? I chatted to him. I actually said, you know, Seth, we struggle over in the UK. We get hit by Electrocoin, and then we get hit by our distributors. So we get like a double whammy. And he says, yes, I've heard this a lot, which was interesting.
Yeah,
and I said this to Gomez as well. I turned around and I says, you know, I've bought, you don't know the amount of money I've spent with Stern on LEs. And, you know, my favorite games, I've still got 5 or 6 Stern games. But now I'm out of new unbox. You're just pricing yourself out of the market in the UK. And he says, this has been addressed. Now, I don't know what that means, or if it's just to make me feel a little better. We will see. I don't know. No idea.
So maybe, do you think that will be in the next title release that he means, or does he think?
No, I think they're getting a lot of bleeding hearts, basically saying the same thing as me. You know, you can love pinball, but there comes a time when it just becomes unviable to buy a new unbox when the £12,000 or whatever. I have no idea what price of premium is. £11,000, £10,000. I don't know. I had a marker of £10,000 with a premium, and I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. It's not. So first of all, I think a few of you said it to them. I'm really glad you did that, because I've been banging this drum for a while, right? And you know, the way I believe, and I don't know this for sure, I've got no facts or anything, but I believe Electrocoin interject a margin that no other distributor in the world interjects. I just believe it, right?
Okay.
And because when you do the maths, you know, and I've imported a few games from the US, and even when you add VAT and even if you airship it, the maths don't add up to what the retailers here have to sell for. So, you know, there is something, you know, not right. And I think it's fair to say Electrocoin, you know, if you compare it to the US distributors, which you guys would have got a taste of in Texas, you know, they're not pinball people. They're you know, Electrocoin are these tickets and fruit machine type guys, right? So they're not part of the market. So I don't think they really, genuinely, even though they're the main distributor for Stern, and who's probably the biggest seller of pinball machines in the UK, I really don't think they understand the UK pinball market at all. Now John, who runs it, he's a really nice guy. I've met him many times, and he's a few folks in his family, and Chris that runs the kind of parts and warranty bit. They're all lovely people, but they're just not connected to the market, and I think that's the issue. So they think they could chuck $2,000 on, or or whatever their markup is. My sense is it's not far from that, and that's okay. And we look around the world and say, well, hold on a minute, we're a million miles away from. I mean, don't get me wrong. Even without that, prices are still high, I would suggest. But I think it's good. And
it would go a bit better, wouldn't it, if the margins were adjusted? I think so.
Well, I think it's look, if Electrocoin feel they need to charge that to survive or to make it worthwhile them selling pinball machines, then Stern need to do something to adjust for them, which happens in every other industry in the world, frankly.
I mean, I read an interesting fact about, and sorry, Cole, we'll come back to you really quickly, but one thing I did find interesting, back in the Bally Williams days, 50% of their sales were overseas.
Yep.
So I'm not saying that's the case now, because it might not well be, but it feels like obviously there is a market for pinball outside of America. So I would have thought the same thing's happening in Europe, right?
But the thing is, though, people are still buying them, aren't they? And I thought after Venom, I thought, oh, hang on, that's got to be a wake up call. But then Jaws, I'm just looking at this week with them landing in the UK, and there's a lot more Jaws being sold than I'd realized, and they're all turning up, and that's fantastic, and it's a worthy game of it, which we'll come back to, I'm sure, and but if people keep buying it at the prices, it does just reinforce the idea that they can sell at that price, so. I don't know how many, it'd be interesting to know a graph of what the drop off is, if there is one, but if we keep buying, they're not going to change anything.
Yeah, I mean, let's not focus too much on this topic, because I think I'll be honest here, and I'm kind of, as much as it frustrates me about the pricing, it feels like all we talk about in this industry right now is pricing, but I do feel that, there are, and I look to Pinball Info as an example, right? Where, I've been on that forum, I guess, roughly 7, 8 years now, right? I'll get my gold badge if I wasn't banned. But the sense I get is there's loads of people who used to buy lots of games back then that simply don't buy them, but they've stopped buying them. But unfortunately, for everyone who stopped buying a game, 2 people have turned up to start buying them, myself included, and I think Paul and Scott, you're part of that. Colin, you've been around in this a bit longer than all of us, I think. So that's the challenge. It's like, where does the demand in terms of units stop, such that the pricing then starts to tail off? Because right now, what I think Stern and all the pinball manufacturers look at is this kind of up and to the left, or sorry, up and to the right. And if you were them, what would you do? You'd like, well, we're not seeing any decline in sales. Let's
ride the gravy train. That's what's happening.
It is. I mean, and look, the at the end of the day, not just Stern. I think other pinball. I think JGP are worse in some respects. But also, I look at, and Scott and I were talking about this on the last podcast. Barrels of Fun could have made a statement about pricing, and they haven't. They've come in at the premium price, give or take, right? Although you might argue there's more on the playfield and the game's got more in it. You can have all those arguments. That's cool, but they could have said, actually, we're coming in at $9,000 for kind of a premium machine, but they're much closer to premium, and to me that signals, actually, to make money, that's what they have to do. We'll see if that's true, and because
I think subsequent releases will tell me whether or not it was initial startup cost that had an effect on that current price, or if it is just the trend that they'll continue at that price tag. But
anyway,
Colin,
continue.
I was going to say, a good starting point to come back on, actually, with Barrels of Fun. I imagine you tried Labyrinth when you were there, Cole. What was your thoughts on that?
Well, so just quickly back to Jaws, I was blown away by the premium, really enjoyed it. And then I went round and I visited all the new machines. So I think someone says, what was my initial impression? Well, the biggest show I've attended, I think Northern Lights had a big one in Manchester I went to, that was quite big, but Pinfest generally our largest show. The big difference between Pinfest and I think the American shows is the older titles, I think I played 2. It was all the new titles that were there, and that was the excitement for me, seeing the new stuff, playing it for the first time.
Yep.
And I wasn't disappointed with much. I'll leave it at that. But I did play a Labyrinth, and I really liked it. And I thought it was really well built. I think it had some little quirky paths, like a Labyrinth. I didn't know where the ball was coming from. You know, I've got it off perfect. And the guy who programs that, I don't know what his name is, but he took time out, and I had a big chat to him, and I was after the pinball armor, and he took me and showed me the armor and stuff. I didn't actually talk about code and stuff.
Phil or Bowen?
Phil. No, it's Phil. Yeah,
Phil,
no,
yeah.
Phil
is an awesome guy. He's a great pinball player. I know him from playing in tournaments. Really good guy.
Yeah. So Labyrinth was great. Texas Chainsaw Massacre I preferred out of the 2 with Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes was like psychedelic puke to me. It was just.
What was it really, like on Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Do you think
it's you know what it is? The models are superb.
Oh, the sculpts, yeah.
They're beautiful. You know, I love the way it played, and it didn't. I felt like I was playing 2 pins. So everybody says they bring this 1 pin out, and then the target for 2 audiences. Why not? Why not target for a family, and why not target for the horror fan? You know, spooky is spooky. They always try to do horror, but I think what they've done is a clever thing. Cover the market. Lovely bunch of guys, man. Them guys are just something else. You should just buy the pins, even if you don't like them. Just because the guys are so. He says we're not out to make vast amounts of money for shareholders. They've got all the right to see all the right things, and the passion that comes out of them is unreal. They spent a lot of times with the guys I was with. We bought play fields. I forget where I got a few bits and bobs off them, but I really enjoyed Texas Chainsaw. I would probably put alongside a Labyrinth. I enjoyed that just as good. I wasn't a fan of Looney Tunes for many reasons. We're not going to. Pulp Fiction got better as we went on. But I literally just went round for 3 days playing the new stuff. So at Pinfest, you don't get that opportunity. What amongst
I'm kind of envious of that.
Several Pulp Fictions.
Yeah.
20 Jaws. I mean, literally 20 Pinball's Jaws. You know, it's crazy. You had Foo Fighters with a new topper on. You know, so you were seeing stuff that you wouldn't see in the UK. And that was it was off the shelf awesome. It was better than I ever imagined, to the fact where I'm seriously going to Chicago this year, but the family, you know, I just cannot really justify it. Sure. It's not a money thing; it's a family thing. You know, you kind of just go swanning around the world.
Do you think that you thought the full days were enough, or did you think 1 day would have been enough to do everything at the show?
I think you need a couple of days. I think I was worried I wasn't going to get on anything. You could get on anything, whatever, and there was no wait. The longest wait you had was 2 people in front of you. Maybe.
Let me just come in on that. So Texas Pinball Festival was a week earlier than what it normally is, and it was the same week as Texas Spring Break, which is the big holiday in the US.
Yeah.
So there's no question, and I heard this from a few folks that were running stands, it was definitely quieter than previous years. No question about it. And actually, to be honest with you, I was happy about that, because last year I would have thought, it was probably a little bit too busy. Actually, Colin talks about sneaking in. Actually, at that point in time, there is actually Texas sell I think it's 50 VIP tickets that get you in, I think 2 or 3 hours before. So this was the VIP time that, you know, if you
snuck in on.
Yeah,
I did, but even when I saw the people coming in, it was still you still didn't have a long wait.
I did hear you guys got some nice merch though from people like Spooky and that. They were selling signs, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and if you wanted stuff I was tempted, but I was thinking, how do I get that home? So they had play fields and were $350 and beautiful art. You know, Looney Tunes, it's beautiful art. Texas Chainsaw, beautiful. And they were called Dent and Scratched. I couldn't see any dents or any scratches. Nice. And they actually had a few that weren't clear coated, and they were actually looking nicer than the clear coated ones. So you didn't have the reflection.
Sure.
And I think
that's good for wall art, as you say. That's nice.
Yeah, well, he bought a couple for wall art, and I was saying to these, I mean, I could talk 3 hours about Texas, but they bought that much. When we went back to the hotel room, it was piled up like a Christmas morning to the ceiling. And I'm saying, where are you putting all this stuff? I had to go out and buy luggage and pay for extra luggage. And there was a couple of the lads who went first class that we'll not get onto, but you got 3 bags through first class. So they were putting all this stuff through. Neil had 4 these pin armor things, these huge amounts of boxes. I was kind of reserved.
I definitely overdid it. I was at the airport swearing like, "You stupid fucking idiot." Excuse my language, but it was painful, and actually it was worse at the other end because it all comes out and I'm trying to get it, and then I suddenly realized my car was rammed of stuff, so I ended up actually unboxing all the stuff to get it in my car.
Oh, wow.
Which was fine, and actually I was parked in that kind of, what was it, meet and greet, and one of the guys actually helped me, which was kind of him. But yeah, so look, there's a couple of games you didn't mention, Colin. Princess Bride.
I loved the way they worked. The code was very clever. The game kind of felt a little bit one-shotty to me. I like when the barriers come up, the breakouts type of thing, and they use that in a clever way. Code-wise, very clever how they use the system. Build-wise, looks lovely. I kind of didn't feel like Pinball to me.
What does it feel like? Because it's like you're playing on a screen, right? Like an acrylic perspex play.
Yeah, it's just like you're playing on a playfield protector, which
okay.
I cannot notice a lot of difference with them either. So we'll not go into that. That's another topic. But playing it just felt a little barren in the middle because of that screen. But the way they've used the mechs, they do bring the mechs out, and there was an extra flipper, but you kept forgetting to use that. I think there was 4 flippers on that machine. I'm not sure. But
I heard there was something weird that you had to use the extra flippers by using the other buttons for the.
It's so clever what he does. He done this one. Now I cannot remember the Princess Bride. It's a hilarious film, and it was a long time since I've seen it. I'd have to revisit it after playing the game. I said to myself, I'm going to revisit that one. So you get the point where it was kind of like Monty Python-esque, where he fights left-handed or something. So all of a sudden you're playing 2 flippers with one hand because there's 3 buttons each side. So you're playing the game with one hand. So you're sword fighting left-handed.
Yeah,
it's hard to explain, but very, very clever use of the code. I didn't play it enough to understand the game or the code. But I came off after one game. I thought, I've had me fill with that one, basically. Yeah.
And
lovely looking pain mind, a really nice one. What was the other one, Neil?
Ninja Eclipse.
I thought that was okay. I think the build was really well made. I played it and actually enjoyed that more than Princess Bride because it felt like a real pinball. I think the guy, and I'm going to lead on to the end bit where I like the best part about Texas, but the guy has done an awesome job with that. As a new pinball, I don't know much about him or what he's doing, but I look at that and it looks better than other companies' pinballs, build-wise.
Turner.
It seems to be like nice engineered bits here and there. I was very impressed.
Yeah, so they got, so it's Turner Pinball, and I have to say, look, I agree with you, and actually I should have mentioned this still on the podcast, but 6 months ago in Chicago, Turner Pinball, and I don't mean this by any disrespect by this, but they were seen as a bit of a joke. Everyone thought this thing's terrible. Actually, I played the game, and it was okay. I had some things in it that weren't quite great, but you kind of approached it like it was a toy as opposed to a pinball machine. And fair play to him, right? He took all of that feedback and completely redesigned the entire cabinet and brought it back 6 months later.
That didn't feel like a toy. That didn't feel like a toy 100%. At all.
It felt like one of the best built in my mind.
Quality pin,
yeah, I agree. But also, it had stuff like you could lift the thing up and it would stay. The cabinet itself had more to it than just holding the playfield. And second to that, they also added a lot of improvements to the game. and especially the kind of LCD bit where there was a lot more going on. I was impressed by it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it in Chicago. But there's a lot of flow in the game, a lot of fun. I didn't have a great amount of time to play it, unfortunately, because every time I went there was a queue, which actually
yes, there was. Yeah, that was one of the few pins I had to queue for because there was only 2 of them, wasn't there?
Oh, I was going to ask, is that just 2 on site? Was it? Okay.
Yeah, so you had a permanent queue on that one.
Chicago, I think you only had 2 as well, but you could get on it right away because basically people just looked at it and thought, "Nah, I don't want to play that," which is a great shame. And I talked to the guy, I think his name's Rob Turner, and I was talking to him. I said, "Look, I played this in Chicago and liked it, but you guys got a bit of a hard time." And I said, "Look, pinball people just expect to see a set sort of thing. So if you mess, the cabinet's one of those things. It's like me at work. If anyone do anything to me work, if you mess with my desk, it just pisses me off, right? No one mess with my desk, and it's kind of a similar thing where people kind of expect something in pinball, and when you start messing around with it, or you do things to it that make the experience less, like the guys, the Deep Root guys, where they made this pin bar thing that made it hard to actually play the game. That was a bit of a challenge. So finally, the last game, Colin, Elton John.
I was going to save this to the end. Well, not quite the end, but for me, that was game of the show. I'll tell you why, and it wouldn't have been game of the show for everybody, but I was surprised. All the lads I was with loved the game. One of them bought the game. I could see myself owning that game if it was a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
The artwork Franchi's done on that, I think it's his best to date. It's stunning in the flesh. Absolutely.
What's it listed in the US?
Stunning.
What's the price of it in the US?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Did they not have a sticker price on the
thing? I think is it 13.5 for the.
Wow. So it's still super expensive even over there.
Yeah, but Steve Ritchie again. Forget about Franchi and the art. Steve Ritchie has done it. Who doesn't like a Steve Ritchie game? Right back from Getaway. My Getaway is just across the road at Billy's, and I still go in easy. He's got a big collection. He's got a collection of about 8. There's only one game I play. It's Getaway. I absolutely love it, and it's tried and tested. I've had his Star Trek, I've had his AC/DC. Basically, I just love his pins. He's went to JJP, and he says, in no uncertain terms, he hates them over at Stern, or certain ones over at Stern. I'll not mention names, but I feel like he's gone over there and they've given whatever bomb he wanted, and he's used every part of it. He's produced a masterpiece. I didn't play it enough to understand the code too much, but it's typical, it's typical JJP. Elton John, I'm not a big fan of, but the toe tappers and the earworms, you'll play a song and you go, I like this. As soon as Rocket Man comes on, it has your toe tapping. Lighting.
I haven't actually played it. So is it like Guns N' Roses from the set?
No,
or is it...
I had a Guns N' Roses CE. Vastly better than Guns N' Roses CE. Oh, yeah. Guns N' Roses, for me, was multi-ball after multi-ball after multi-ball, and it got a bit dreary trying to keep the song going. Look, I'm not dissing the game. I love. I'm
just saying, is the rule set the same? That you have to keep the music going, or is it?
So Elton John is. Look, you love Star Trek.
Yeah.
I guarantee you will love this game because it is a Star Trek sort of flow monster. It's a similar layout, but it is different. If you overlay them, you see the differences. But it's got mode based, but they've done some cool things like, you've got this mode multi-ball, croc multi-ball, and rocket multi-ball. If you get them both together, you get croquet multi-ball, which I thought was a kind of cool thing. But as Colin says, the reason I loved it, I mean, I'm not a massive Elton John fan. My wife's she's a bit bigger. We went to see him a while ago, but there's something about his music that just works in pinball. It's and I think JGP, fair play to them, have pulled together, and actually Steve Ritchie have pulled together a masterpiece. But not only that, they've done one other big thing. There's no question that they have fixed any sort of flipper BS in that game. it is night and day different. And that
I always used to find that with my Guns N' Roses. It used to feel like very like limp noodles. I didn't like that at all.
It's like Hobbart's floaty, isn't it? You know, Waz's floaty. I like the games I've had Waz, I've had Hobbit. You know, I love the game. I had them quite a long time, but this is a different generation. Honestly, if they continue making their pins like that, it's just the price. It's just that so again, we're getting back to price. It's always coming down to price.
It's $13,000 for the well, they call it the Platinum Edition, which I'm glad they've changed the name, because LE for a game that sells in
it's not limited.
It's not limited, right? But yeah, I mean, look, I was, you know, as someone, you know, first of all, fair play to Colin, because you know, I got a bit of stick when I said I like Jaws. In fact, I got a bit of salt. And now Colin's having to eat the dish. So
no, but you know what it is? I admitted it day one when I had a game on that premium. I was like, wow. And then four of us started playing, and we kept going back to Jaws. Jaws wasn't my game of the show. It was my surprise of the show. And I tell you, the other big surprise of the show that I stayed away from, Venom. I really enjoyed Venom. I hate to say it again. I really hate to say it again, but I only played it in premium flavor because I looked at the pro thinking, well, they're forgetting to put something in here. It does look a bit barren. But if that wasn't a Marvel game, let's say it was something like John Wick, and you're shooting, you're firing, you know, this is where the modes are coming up and the baddies are there. And this fast firing, I felt like I was on that. Can you remember that game with the ball bearings, rollerball or something? Was it called?
I know what you mean. Star Roller. I can't remember.
Anyhow, that one, somebody will come up with. I felt like I was continually firing these guns, you know, but it was a Marvel game, and I really enjoyed it, and everyone enjoyed it to the point where one of the lads, I'll not mention names, but one of the lads was seriously thinking of getting one, and he probably will at some point.
I don't blame him.
I mean, I would have,
and you know, me too. I would have a premium. But
yeah, same.
I'm about 5 over now. I'm 5 over, something like that. I've got pins loaned out left, right, and centre on free loan, and I'm thinking to myself, this is stupid. I've just bought. I've got to tell you that I've just bought a Jaws, so that's what I think of Jaws.
But did you buy a Jaws premium?
Just everyone, it was go back to you know, January in Pinball Info.
No, we'll forget about
and look at the two glorious posts that Colin made about Jaws. When he posts so this morning, I wake up to WhatsApp. I've been playing Jaws all night. I was pissing myself laughing. It made my
amazing
day. So well
can I just say something? Why I bought a Pro, and there's a reason I bought a Pro. I'll not get into. It wasn't brand new in box. I got it 30 players. So
okay.
I was intending getting it to sell it to maybe get something. I was going to see if I could get I'll be honest, I was going to see if I could get a Venom for it. That was the idea. But I set it up yesterday, and I've got loads of work to do. I've got loads of back orders and stuff, and I couldn't get off it. And the game is brilliant, and it's a Pro. And it's
you heard it here first, guys. If you haven't got an order from Cole, he's been playing games instead of doing your orders.
Well done, Cole.
I had 4 sets of stuff to get out, and some people in this podcast tonight not getting them. But I started playing, I couldn't get off, and it was like 10:30. I was dragging myself off because I just had to get the high score, and I just had to have one more go, and that's a sign of a good pin. One more go. Absolutely. It flows really nice. The things I don't like about it is should I have drop targets. I can probably live without the boat at the top. Somebody's probably going to put something up there, and I'll buy it to fill the gap. But the drop targets for me was a biggie. What else is missing, Neil, on Jaws for premium? There's the flipper at the top.
Playfield and the drop targets is kind of the main thing, really, isn't it?
Well, for me, if
the boat lifting up.
The boat lifting up, but I mean,
honestly, I'm not really bothered. I'm not bothered.
From a play point of view, it's not. I mean, the one thing I'll say, right, and this is where I think Elwyn has pulled another one off on this game. You know, we've seen this talk about pinball moments before, right? I tell you what, there's no, and actually Paul mentioned it to me last night, but I'd never got to the mode, and I got it to this morning. There's a mode called night fishing or something.
Yeah, I've had that
And
one.
let me tell you, that is a pinball moment that's unbelievably well done in my
Was
view.
it good lighting effects? Is it? I imagine.
Yeah, and there's
they've
RGB on
just-
the Pro as well. That's the
they've
best part of
just
it. You're
freaking
getting the
nailed
same
it.
effect.
So,
Okay.
and it's not like a pinball moment where some toy does something, right? Or or there's music, but the whole kind of environment of the game changes. And I was like, holy shit. I mean, I was super, I've never seen something quite like done so well. And it's not kind of in your face, it's kind of subtly done. And then and then you're playing it like, crikey, and it's like night, and you think, oh, of course. And they've just, I have to say, and here's the great thing, code version 0.87.
Yeah, the assets are,
to come.
from me first playing that, the assets in that now, there must be vastly more, because it's amazing the amount of assets I have in that game. I've done the night swim and I've done the night fishing, and I think that's great. But what impresses me is at least they put the RGB in a Pro and give you them effects, because without them, it would have killed the Pro. I don't think the shark matters, and I'm a bash toy whore. I really am. I love hitting the toy, because if a friend comes in, he doesn't play pinball, I'll say, "Oh, you're Metallica Bash Sparky." He'll have a pinball moment. If you come in, you play Monster Bash, hit Frankie, he'll have a pinball moment. I like that. So, but with Jaws, it doesn't need the shark coming out. I think they've had a little, from me as well, a little bit unjust press. You see a pin, you don't play it, and you just diss the. It happens on pinball all the time. Everybody will diss the new pin, but hands up, seriously. After playing the pin, I take everything back I said about it. It's brilliant. Even in a Pro, it's brilliant.
And I think that's what same for Godzilla. The Pro's every bit as good as the LE in my view in terms of playing. Actually, there's some elements you might argue are a little bit better. So and then Colin, the kind of actually let's move on. We'll come back to the kind of the stuff around the show. And Paul, let's pick up with you and kind of same thing. Let's just walk through. You were there for a little bit less time, I think.
I got there later on the second day that those guys were. I was there when it
just opened. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So I'm going to echo a lot of what Cole said, I think, and obviously we played some of the games together and sort of shared our thoughts at the time. I mean, Jaws, it was a big surprise. I think all the same things really. I was a bit underwhelmed by the release and the videos I'd seen of it. But actually, if I was going to say anything, I'd expected the Pro to be the one, because I thought it was going to play faster and simpler without the upper playfield. I thought the upper playfield seemed a bit pointless to me. But I played the premium and the Pro, but the premium, it just blew me away. It was really good, really thoroughly enjoyed it. But for me, it was the shots, the ramps, super smooth, really nice ball path, really nice ways where it hook around. It just felt good. The ball swings. I mean, Elwyn's great at that sort of thing anyway, but just different ball paths I haven't seen before. And that was what I really enjoyed about it. And I wasn't going to get one. I'm still not at the moment, but I'm really tempted. I'm really having to hold back with the FOMO and everybody getting theirs. I'm really getting jealous. It was cool. And, the other thing was I was going to I wasn't going to do a mod for it, because every man and a dog is trying to do a mod for Jaws right now. But I played it and it was one of those things where I just had an idea. I was like, I've got an idea I think could be really cool. So I'm working on something. I don't know whether I can make it work because it's a little bit ambitious, but I find for that you play a game and you get a feel for it and it either clicks with you or it doesn't. And that one did click. Haven't ordered one yet. I figure because it's a premium, I've got time, and I was sort of thinking, well, I'll wait and see if Stern bring anything else out this month and just sort of see. But it was good. It's really good.
What's your thoughts on that upper playfield then? Because you mentioned in the Pro you were worried that it would affect the flow. So now that
it's a
you
really fast upper playfield, you know, it's like you barely get time for one shot, and I think that's what it's all about, is just reflex action. You're not up there for long. It's not like trying to jiggle a machine about. And look, I only played a few games at a show. You know, I couldn't hear it. I couldn't get into the lighting in the way that you do at home. So you know, I would say I've only experienced half of it, if that, really. You know, but just the ball paths and the shots were what did it for me. And I think there's more ramps, aren't there, on the premium, I think, or just the way the wireframes work. And
there's the wireframe that goes back, down, and round from the upper.
Yeah, that was a really nice shot.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, and it feels great when you hit it. But I agree with you. The upper play feels more like a passing shot. It's not like you're trying to play a mini pinball machine, and they're always crap, right?
Yeah,
you're literally kind of in a. It looks like you're in a higher part of the same game. There happens to be a flipper there, and you've got 3 or 4 choices.
It's just like, feel like an upper level, if anything else. Then
I can echo this. I can echo this exact same thing. I didn't mention that, but when playing the premium, the big loss for me was the drop targets onto the Pro.
Yeah.
It kind of annoyed me, the top playfield. I couldn't even get the shot off. You know,
I'd agree with that.
Come at a home, and once I dial in, I would get that shot. But it was there and gone. I was like, oh, I've missed it again. And it was like, oh, just do away with that, you know. So to me, it was more the drop targets than the upper playfield.
Yeah,
the look of it was nice. So the look of the boat was nice.
I agreed.
Yeah, and I really like the shark coming up. That was actually really cool, better in person than I was expecting. I just enjoyed all of it, really. I can't fault it. It caught me off guard because I just didn't think it was for me. And like I say, I've got a mod idea, and I'll wait and see. I'm really trying to hold back for once on a pinball machine, because normally, you know, I've got some LEs as well, and I've jumped in, and with an LE previously, you had to get in early if you wanted one, and that was it. So once you're in premium land, I sort of felt, well, I could just wait and see, right?
Well, you got 3 years before they stop making it, probably. So
exactly. So, you know, see what others bring out, and or see what they bring out next. But you know, the problem is I'm trying to make a mod for a machine I don't have, which is a pain. So that's a first as well. So I'm having to rely on all you good people to, you know, give me measurements and all the rest of it. So, but yeah, so thank you for that. But no, it was good. So Jaws was great. I mean, Elton John, I'll jump to, because I felt Elton, I didn't feel it as much as other people. It looks great. Elton as a theme doesn't do anything for me, but I think they captured the theme perfectly in terms of the artwork and the glitz and the glamour and all of that, which was really cool. The shots were just, I think they were just like an evolution of what Steve Ritchie has done before, which is fine. But that's where the difference of Jaws gets me. You know, like I played Jaws, and I'm like, whoa, I haven't seen that before. That felt really good. Whereas playing Elton, it was just like, well, I've kind of seen this layout before. It's a bit smoother, a bit slicker. But I don't know, that for me just didn't quite do it. But it is pretty, and I like looking at it, and I'd play it in somebody else's collection. I think I could have a fun night playing a multiplayer on it, but I personally wouldn't buy it. But it's, you know, these things are so subjective. But you mentioned about the flipper power. I haven't played JJPs before. So I did Toy Story, what's the Mafia one?
Godfather. Yeah.
And they were just, I mean, bad. I'll be honest, really bad.
Wow.
Sorry, yeah, I just didn't. Yeah. And I'm into toys. Like Toy Story should have been right up my street. But the flipper power, yeah, maybe it just couldn't withstand a show or something. But the flippers were rubbish. I just didn't enjoy them at all, actually. In fact, I think I walked away from Godfather. Like, it was that sort of, just didn't connect with me at all.
Toy Story to me feels like, you remember when they brought out E.T. on the Atari?
Like, they should have buried them all.
And no, they did. They buried them all in the desert somewhere, because it was such a bad game. And to me, it's not. Look, Toy Story is not a terrible game. Don't get me wrong. It's not in that league, but it's in terms of the opportunity missed. Right. Toy Story should be one of the best. This is why, people. I get a lot of shit for being negative on games, but it's not because I want to be negative. It's because if we don't feed back that this game isn't good enough, we'll keep getting more of the same stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel strongly that, look, if this game isn't good, I want to tell you why it's not good. And Toy Story just misses the mark entirely from my point of view.
But it was interesting for me, the flipper thing, because I've never experienced it before, and I've heard and seen, you guys write about this, and I totally felt it. The flippers just felt weird. But then I played Elton John, and that wasn't an issue. So yeah, they've clearly solved it. But on the theme of flippers, though, I had the same issue with the barbecue game.
We didn't talk about barriers, did we?
No,
Yeah.
so I thought that was really interesting. I mean, so again, all the ones I played had flipper power issues where, I mean, it's not a complex game and there aren't complex shots or hard shots to make, but the flipper still was struggling to make the one ramp, I think, that is in there, and when it can't make the one ramp on a very, very simplistic game. So look, if it was priced right, and I think they got the art wrong. I think it felt to me like it should have gone a bit more retro, like how Pulp Fiction has done. And I'd actually played some of the old games for the first time there. So I played a lot of Diner. So Davey was showing me Diner and describing the rules and stuff. That was a really fun game. Really enjoyed it. Yeah. And then I played the barbecue game, and I sort of felt, this feels like it wants to be that, and obviously it doesn't have the ramps and stuff, but I feel like if they'd gone way more retro with the artwork, simplified some of the stuff that's going on in there, it could have felt like a stripped down old school machine.
You've nailed it there for me. I mean, the part that I didn't like about is the video asset drops. They look straight out of Adobe stock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all of that, and it's just it just was a mishmash design style wise. It needed a better art vision and an art director to really pull that together properly. So
I mean, I think, look, I felt this. Actually, I played the game, like, literally turned it on and played it, and I was able to hit the shots, but over time, the machine just couldn't keep the flippers at a power level that you could make that shot consistently. Actually, as a tournament player, I was thinking this would be awesome in tournaments, but they've got to sort that flipper thing out. Actually, David Fixer mentioned it to him, and he's like, "Yeah, no, we've had that feedback. We're going to take a look at it." So hopefully, when the games start moving, that they've solved that. But this is the problem when you invent IP. You're fully accountable for all parts of it, and if you come up with something, you've got to put the vision into it. And I actually think they did a reasonably decent job of that on Galactic Tank Force, but they haven't done enough with Barrios, and frankly, I don't think they're going to. And I think everyone's like, I mean,
this probably end up like Pirates, right? Code abandoned, probably.
I don't know if it'll end up code abandoned, but I definitely feel that I mean, I think they'll see through to the rule, at least that the rules are done. But whether you see, the kind of level of Jaws integration, I super doubt it, right? But I thought it was a fun game. Yeah, fix the flippers. It's still a bit on the pricey side for what you're getting.
And that's where I think there's an opening. If they priced it right and stripped it down, I think they could have slotted in there and actually been competitive. But I think comparing it to like a Jaws Pro or something like that for maybe a small amount more, no, it's not a comparison for me. And again, it's always subjective. I don't, we're going to have different opinions, which is great. But
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've seen people time and time again say unlicensed pins just won't sell anymore in these markets. Everyone wants a licensed game, but I think if the right unlicensed game came in, I would want it. I really did want Galactic Tank Force,
but I think you've got to price it appropriately, right? So if it's unlicensed, you're not paying a license fee. You're not paying Star Wars or Marvel or anything else. So why am I paying the same as those machines, right? So that's point number one. And then the other one that I would have compared the barbecue game to is going back to Turner Pinball and that Ninja Eclipse, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's what it's called.
So I really enjoyed that because I came and grabbed Cole for that one and said, I said, oh, you got to play this one. I really enjoyed it. Tiny bit of flipper issue, but compared to the others, no, not as bad. Not quite at Stern level, but the game itself, the artwork. Couldn't quite hear the sound. There's one sound effect which was winding me up a little bit because it seemed to be quite high pitched and coming through above all the surrounding noise. So I don't know how that would be, but I felt the artwork was really nice. He'd obviously created this theme. So it was a new IP and like a ninja theme. That's cool. You know, what's wrong with a good ninja theme? I can't think of one that's been done yet. So I think he's actually, as a non-licensed pin, I think that's really close. Again, if you price it competitively, had some really nice shots. The mech had like a double kick out kind of thing, like a zigzag. I thought it was really cool. I mean, that caught me off guard, as in like super cool, seemed like a nice guy. And again, really impressed with what he's achieved. So I've got my eyes on that game. I mean, if that came out in the sort of, I don't know, I mean, this is optimistic, but 6K, if it was in the 6K region, I think that would be,
you're right. That would be compelling. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's difficult now for people, but anyway, Turner, I really liked. Princess Bride, you've mentioned. Oh man, I'm a massive fan of that film. Really big fan of the film, and I haven't played Multimorphic. So again, I was going in there and I wanted to really like it because I'm all for changing things up. Like, I know I get the arguments, let's keep it different, all the rest of it, keep it the same. But it was just weird choices, like 3 buttons on each side and a different button for each flipper. And nobody I met remembered to use the second flipper because it's just not natural to do that.
And did you notice the 3 flippers were like on a block of wood that brought them out a little bit further?
Yeah, it just felt weird.
What the hell?
Don't know what that was all about, and I didn't expect it to jump out at me, but it does. The actual screen thing, I like the concept of it, but the playfield is just too bare. There's just not enough on it for me, and the wall and the shots, I just didn't have a good experience. I did walk away from that as well, and I didn't want to because I really like Princess Bride. So I went to play the Scott Denisi one that he's done for
Final Destination or
Final Resistance.
Final Resistance, that's it. So that was better. That was better because it felt a bit more TNA. It had the music, the shots were clean, and it was simple. But then I thought he wasn't making the most of the digital platform because I didn't know where I was supposed to shoot. And I just thought, you've got this massive screen which could be literally lighting up paths. This could be like the game changer in pinball of like really clear, instructions of where to shoot and when and all the rest of it. But I think I heard that he'd sort of stripped it back and didn't want to rely on all of that and wanted it to feel more traditional. So yeah, I don't know, Multimorphic just didn't do it for me, unfortunately. Looney Tunes and Texas Chainsaw, contrary to what you were saying, Cole, Looney Tunes, I really like the look of it. Like, I think you mentioned that, but it felt like a cartoon to me, which was good. It was okay, played nicely. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I can see why people like it. I just don't like horror themes. I just don't. It's just
a thing. Safe bet why they did it, right? I think that's clever marketing in that respect.
Yeah, and it is good in that respect. So if I was getting one, I'd probably go Looney Tunes, but I can see why people feel it's a better fit on the Texas Chainsaw. But
how did you guys feel about the build quality? I forgot to ask that. How did you feel like the build quality? What did you feel?
It felt fine to me, but in a few games knocking it around it seemed fine. I had no issues, and it'd obviously been sat there for a couple of days. And I've got a TNA, so I sort of know, but that's sort of spooky, but sort of Scott Denisi, so it's hard to compare. But I didn't lock in on either one of those. I wouldn't get one. Jaws was a big one. Venom, again, like Cole said, I think we both were playing that. Venom was a massive surprise. And I think I mentioned as well, exactly the same discussion. If that was John Wick or something, would love it. Marvel with the Zombie Yeti artwork is getting a bit repetitive at this stage for me. And I'm a Marvel fan.
Like Marvel movies, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, look, I love Zombie Yeti's art. I love Marvel comic books. I love Marvel movie. Well, the older ones.
Infinity War, yeah.
But it's getting a bit much now when you look at Infinity War or the Avengers.
Quest, yeah.
They start to look the same. So I've got a little bit of a thing there. But that was a great game, the premium. So yeah, Venom Premium was getting me. That was getting me hooked as well. I I kept going back to Jaws. Pulp Fiction I hadn't played, lived up to expectations. First game, really nice, clean, hard, but in a good way. It's just a great game. I'm really looking forward. I mean, I'm on the list for that, so hopefully it follows through.
Is that for an LE, is it? Or
yeah. So who knows when it'll actually come? But I mean, looks like it's a stunning game. Stunning. I think that's the sort of game that it'll outlive me. I think that I can't imagine I'll be selling that. It's just beautiful. And then the show was great. Like, I know we've touched, I've just repeated really what Cole said with a couple of minor personal preferences, but the show was great. The people were great. I suppose that in terms of machines, though, the one thing we haven't spoken about, which I thought was really the showstopper, was the homebrew section.
Yeah,
That's what I was saving to the end. That's what I was on about.
Yeah, so I don't know when we want to tackle that, but that section
let's jump in now.
Well, one quick thing actually from both of you. So I think Cole's kind of covered his most surprising and his pin of the show. I think what I'd also like to add, if you could also cover, Cole, your least favorite, and then Paul, if you could do the same three, that would be good to understand. So Cole, if you can quickly tell me your least favorite.
Least favorite, probably Barry's. I couldn't get up the ramp.
Okay.
Barry's barbecue, Barry Orr's barbecue. I just couldn't get up the ramp. I like the flame effects on the pop bumpers, and I was like, I like the way they've done that. You know, the little shiny things get me. You know, I'm all for a bit bling, but I couldn't play it. I walked away because I couldn't get the ball up the ramp. Now, to
fundamental playing issue, basically.
To put that into context, I went to Turner. We've spoke about Turner. There was a permanent queue at Turner Pinball. There was only 2 of them, and there was a permanent queue. You couldn't walk on it. Barry Orr's, he had 6 machines, and you could get on. Yet all the flipper fade on all them 5 machines. I tried 2 different machines. I couldn't get up the ramp. Yeah. It's not because I'm bad. I was hitting the ramp. It was crawling up and crawling back. And I'd hit it, and it'd come back. It was so bloody annoying. Yet Turner Pinball, every shot counted. Everything you went for, it went. The build and everything. So, worst pin of the show. I hate to say this because I kind of struck up a little bit of a friendship with David Fix. And he even gave me one of his, because Galactic Tank, the art on that is off the wall. It's awesome. I think it's packed. It's everything I want in a pin. But again, we'll have to have another 2-hour podcast because there's so many things wrong with that pin for me. I did have a really good game, and when I had a good game, I was like, whoa, I like this. Coming back to Pulp Fiction on the last day, I hit everything went off. I got every multi-ball. I was on fire, and I was playing with Mednick, Mark, and he was like, you're doing all right here, Cole. My score was flying up. I came off that, and I was like, wow. And that's the pin I warmed to. Wasn't me pin of the show. I still think Elton was. And what was the other question? There was another question. So
that was your surprise. So your biggest surprise.
Yeah, my biggest surprise. And then can I just say the time I spent on most was homebrew.
Yeah.
I just kept going back. Honestly, stunning. What them guys have done. I can give you a full. I mean, I chatted to the guys. It's just mind blowing what they've done with that.
Park that
Friday the 13th guy had.
Right. We'll come back.
I've got to shut up. I'll quickly go for a restroom stop.
Sure.
Okay. You get where I am there? Restroom.
I can.
Right.
Yes. Paul, then.
So
same
for
3
me,
questions.
So what was it? Worst game first, right?
Sure. Worst, please, first. Yeah. Or least favorite. Let's call it.
Yeah, least favorite. Sorry, Princess Bride. Yeah, I don't know if it's because I love the film, but I just, it just did not. I didn't like it. I can't get away from that. Sorry,
Okay.
Maybe there's more to it that Cole was describing some stuff which I didn't experience, but that was a shame. So that was my least favorite. Biggest surprise, was it that you said?
Biggest surprise, yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, that was Venom. Like, I was surprised at Jaws, but Venom was like a really whoa, okay, I thought this was supposed to be an absolute turd, but I played the premium and it was
I do wonder if that's going to be a Stranger Things kind of pin.
Yeah, I think so. Honestly,
Sleeper.
I'm tempted to try and get hold of one, but it's just so much money now for a premium. And I wouldn't go pro. Like it had, for me, it had to be the premium with the little targets that flip out and all of that. But the coding, the way that you can change characters, get the different music tracks, even there you could sort of sense the feel of the different flavor of each character and stuff. It was cool, man. I really enjoyed it. And the layout, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm just missing that from my lineup. I don't have any machines that just have a series of shots, you know, like
fan layout.
Fan
straightforward.
layout,
I guess it's a fan layout, isn't it? Yeah. So that was probably the surprise. I mean, Jaws was also a bit of a surprise. It's a tough one. Best game. I mean, it's kind of like it's either Jaws Premium or Pulp Fiction. I sort
Go
of.
on, I have to push you for a choice. You got to make one.
I mean, they're so different. I mean, I almost term them. It's like picking a different genre. I'd put them on par with each other.
Do what Chris Gonzo does when he has his like top 100. He says if price wasn't an object and you could have one or the other today, but only one, which one would it be?
If I get, well, again, it's like, well, I need Jaws for mod making.
Ignore
Pulp
that.
Fiction, but from a collector's point of view, I'd have Pulp Fiction. I think that will go the distance with me. But if I'm honest, like the one that I spent the time on there and just thoroughly enjoyed, it's a different relationship. But they're both great. But yeah, I'll stick with Pulp Fiction. But
just quickly, so I'm going to pressure this. Labyrinth.
Yeah, I liked a lot of the design decisions made. It still had flipper fade for me, which I just don't understand why these machines have got flipper fade. It's the basic function of the thing
of the game.
You know,
I experienced that in Chicago, and apparently they were like, because the games were getting hammered.
Yeah, I was about to say it was just continually hammered
for miles, and I think they were trying to manage that. I think, you know, my sense is when I'd like to play one that isn't at a show so I can really feel how it plays. But yeah, you're right. I mean, these games are designed to be hammered. They're supposed to be in arcades with people putting pound coins in them, right? So
yeah, and it didn't seem to happen on the older machines, right? As far as I'm aware. So it seems to be a new phenomenon. But I mean, the thing I liked about Labyrinth, actually, I really, going back to that design direction and having a vision, they knew what they were doing. They had a vision. All the sculpts are brilliant. The way they interact and they poke up the little characters, really nice. Also, the playfield art, you know, they made the decision to make it like a map, like a labyrinth. It's not just pictures of people and scenes from a film or whatever. It's a story, a bit like a game board, you know. You're seeing it as a map looking down. And I think it works brilliantly. It's really nicely done. It's subtle almost, the decisions they've made, but it weaves into the theme perfectly. So design vision, I think they absolutely nailed it. Gameplay-wise, I didn't get enough to really feel it. And the music is a little bit sleepy. It doesn't quite have the vibe that I enjoy in a pinball machine. And that's where I'd like to get to know Jaws a bit better, actually, because that... Again, it's not got the rock music or whatever it is, the
adrenaline pumping music. Yeah,
it's atmospheric, right? But it's atmospheric in a tense way, whereas I felt Labyrinth was atmospheric in a sleepy way. So
yeah. I mean, you're in for a treat with the Jaws audio. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, they've captured it. They've captured it perfect.
It really is. I mean, so Paul. You know, you're not you didn't like when David Bowie would suddenly come on and start going, None of that didn't do it for you.
I mean, that bit, I don't mind that sort of stuff, to be honest, but it's a bit like the Elton John. It doesn't really grab me, no. I mean, look, that was all right, but it's the sleepy, tinkly music while you're flipping the game, you know.
The odd little weird voice. I mean, when I actually burst out laughing when I first played it and David Bowie started doing his thing. It made me laugh because it was just, it was like... Surely
you must like You Remind Me of the Babe, though. I love that. Magic Dance, right? I think it's called. I love that song.
No, sorry, Scott. No one likes it. Sorry.
I love it. I'm sorry. I'm probably the only guy here that probably loves like that kind of era of fantasy. I would have a Labyrinth. I really would.
Right, so look, conscious time. Let's move on. first of all, really appreciate that, guys. Let's talk about the homebrew section, because I kind of talked a tiny bit about this in the main podcast, but I have to say, if you ask me which game did I play most, it was 8-Ball Beyond.
Yeah.
I kept going back and playing that.
Can I ask though, because is that literally like a guy who's built the playfield from scratch, or was it a retheme? What was it?
He's built the entire game, soup to nuts, from scratch.
Actually, he built the entire game in a year, and he scrapped it totally. He realized how bad that game was. I spoke to this guy at length on a number of occasions. I even says, I would buy that pin off you now for 15 or 20 grand. Name your price.
I think a lot of people said that to him, because
yes, he did.
Everybody was saying, you need to make this. It's just so good. I mean, to me, it's like 8-Ball meets TNA, and it's just brilliant. It's really cool. And again, we go back to like non-licensed themes. That nails it, man. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
but, I mean, TNA is a good example of that, right? That sold well, TNA, and that was an unlicensed theme, so it is definitely possible.
The guy who made it is a guy called Sean Irby, who I've seen at shows and tournaments quite a few times. But go Google it and have a look at it. The thing that I love, colored LEDs. When you see a lot of kind of spectrum of color. That's just like you see it on gaming PCs where they have this, and that's just an attraction for me. And you kind of see that on the playfield. The whole thing's so bright, and he's got this kind of big light at the side of it that just illuminates the entire playfield. So you kind of feel like it's kind of like it kind of creates this atmosphere on the playfield right away, and you can see everything, and then you got this great music, and the screen has got all this stuff on it, which actually is quite hard to follow.
Did he make his own music then? So yeah. Talk me about the music.
Everything he done himself. After that year, he scrapped. He started from scratch, from a piece of plywood and a router, and he just hacked away at this thing for 3 years. He had to do it in stages because cost-wise, to get the guy to do the call-outs and then the artists, he went through a number of artists that he couldn't afford. He eventually settled with one. And the retro futuristic look of everything is just gelled beautifully. Yeah. You get on about the balls.
I'll sympathize with the voice actors. It's a pain in the ass to find someone doing it.
Even the chord, even the back screen. TNA, look at TNA. It's crap. The graphics on TNA is crap. It's a brilliant game. But they've done it like in a retro look. He's done it like in a future retro look. That's a step ahead of TNA. And it's showing you all your information, everything that's happening. And like Neil said, the 8 small balls, which are like targets, they all have this multi-glow style RGB effects that are stunning. And that's all over the playfield. And he has magnets that hold the ball, and then another hold the ball. And then he has a target that knocks down like a TNA-esque target that opens up a path to another ball. It's amazing. Honestly, I kept going back and back and back. Game of the show, best game ever. Over Elton John, you kind of buy it. It's a homebrew game.
And he'd set it up so they were like trick shots, so he'd thought about the rules that tied into the theme. It was just well thought through. I think that'd be a massive hit. Again, we come back to price point and where it can fit and stuff, but you could sell that at a pretty.
Could you play multiple players with it? As in, like, could you do a 4-player game on it, or was it just like he'd only built the code to work with one player?
No, we play multiplayer.
We have multiple games. I mean,
so he thought about the code, like how it would affect, like the game state from player to player. He'd done all that in-depth code, I'm imagining then.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was using a framework. I think he was using the Pinball framework, which does a lot of that stuff for you.
It does some legwork for you.
But in terms of rules and the lighting and the music and the screen part, and actually, I mean, if you want to learn more about this, folks, go on Pinside. There's an 8-Ball Beyond thread. I mean, I saw this at I can't remember what show I saw it, but the queue to get to it was like miles long.
Yeah,
I managed to watch it. I also took some video of this on my YouTube channel, YouTube/Neil McRae 1. If you want to have a look at it, it's a bit shaky cam, but you'll get the gist of it. But I just feel that it's the full package, right? It's the artwork, it's the music, it's the game, it's the rules, and it's kind of taken, you know, pool's been used a lot in pinball, and it kind of feels like it's you know, I think the last pool game was what, eight ball deluxe, right? And 9-ball, which is one of my favorite classics, and he's kind of ripped it right into the future, but not made it, and put enough into it to make it interesting, but not overly complex. You know, it's and it has that TNA feel, but I think I think TNA is a simple but addictive game. I think this has got more complexity to it, more repeat value. I would say.
I'd have one over TNA any day.
Yeah, no, I
love TNA. I've got TNA.
I mean, I went and talked to George at Stern. I talked to Dave Fix. I talked to the guys from Luke from Spooky. I went and talked to all the manufacturers and said, one of you guys needs to build this game, because I am convinced there's a market for it. I'll buy one right away. I'll buy one.
Yeah,
sounds like there would be a massive market for it.
Something actually that hasn't been mentioned that he told me is Stern had it for a number of weeks, and they were in talks about doing it. But obviously, you looked at it and thought, this is for a boutique manufacturer like Spooky. I really wanted Spooky to take this on. And I'm just surprised. I don't know if they're just stolen a load of ideas from it and given them it back. I've no idea.
Well,
I hope not.
I mean, let's jump to that. On the Spooky stand.
I was going to ask, wasn't there a heavy metal game there?
Yeah, so there was
Motorhead. It's really good.
Yeah.
Which by a guy I know, he's actually pretty well known, and he's a great tournament player, a guy called Dave Peck, whose daughter is the current ladies world champion. He's based out of New Zealand, and Dave used to have a pinball collection in the hundreds. He had a really successful furniture business, or something like that, and then bought literally loads of machines. He's downsized and moved because he's kind of retired, even though he's probably about my age actually. But he put together this Motorhead, and you know, I have to say, if there was a list of themes at the top of my list of pinballs to buy, Motorhead's probably not there. But knowing Dave, I went along, had a play of it just before the open. There was the coder guy that was there as well, and one other guy, and for me, it felt like a really great game. It was challenging. It probably didn't have the kind of, what I would say, it was quite a dark kind of grey game, which is what Motorhead are all about. But it was funny. It had some really wacky comments like "you've been fisted" and just again, the whole thing soup to nuts. He pulled together. He got proper coders on it. You know, you couldn't see any other game in this. It was a completely new game. There was one shot that I found really difficult. There's this kind of weird loop shot on it. You had Motorhead music again. You could hear a little bit of that. You couldn't really hear it that well in the show though because of the noise. But you know, again, I said to Spooky Luke, I said, you guys need to make this because you know,
it was a good fit for them. But apparently he's I read that he's Spooky Australia or something like that. So they're affiliated, or he was using their setup or something.
Yeah, so he is his daughter Daniela works for Spooky.
Right, okay.
And I don't know if I think he's got a business relationship with them, but I definitely feel, I mean, I was impressed by the game, and I have to say, it's rare. It's very rare that you find a homebrew. I mean, this is the thing about the homebrew section at TPF this year. The games felt more complete than I've ever seen in homebrews. Yeah. Usually, you find something that's just not quite over the line, and you kind of walk away.
Drags it down a little bit. Yeah,
close but no cigar. This time there was none of that for these two games anyway.
I totally agree. Motorhead is not a theme that I would specifically go after, but I played it and it played really nicely. And the thing that I enjoyed, it was a challenge, but it had this sort of weird overlapping double flipper on the right-hand side, which I haven't come across that before. Maybe it's been around. But
Starship Troopers probably is the one I can think of.
There's lots of pins had it.
There's a couple.
So I haven't played with that before, and I thought that was quite interesting to me, like getting around the idea that if you mistime it, it just rolls back in between the two and stuff like that, and it just, yeah, it would catch you off guard. So that was fun. Really enjoyed it though, but echo everything Neil said about that one. But the homebrew section as a whole, yeah, really finished stuff. And the guy that did, I mean, I don't know if we want to move on to the others, but Friday 13th also stood out as a guy that complete package. Like that dude, we spoke to him and he'd basically got call outs from the original actors that he'd either tracked down on stuff like Cameo or he'd gone to conventions and asked them to say something and recorded it as best he could at the convention and used it. And then, you know, they were up for it. And he got one of the actors and she did a load of voiceover work properly for him, you know, that he paid her to do and stuff. So he'd really gone that extra mile to tie it all together with original actors doing their lines. And, you know, again, it's a horror one. It's not the sort of thing that appeals to me, but I could really appreciate how much work had gone into it and, you know, how well he tied it all together. Yeah, that one. And I think Saw as well. Those, again, another horror one.
Saw was a remake of Whirlwind, wasn't it? It was a
It was, and I think it was a bit
the
more
way he done it was
obvious.
super. Yeah,
It was nicely done, but it was a bit more obviously a reskin as opposed to a ground up sort of machine. So they were really impressive though. But 8 Ball for me, that again, that pretty much was up there with best of the show. You know, Pulp Fiction and Jaws. I loved it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
can you guys talk me back through like TNA? Was TNA like that when it first came out? Was that like some guys you just brought in as a homebrew, right?
Yeah, so I played the TNA prototype in Chicago 2016, and I was blown away by it. I thought, oh my god. And Scott Dennis there. Scott works for Pinball Life, so he's well connected in the industry. They supply, as well as selling parts to you, me, and everyone else, they supply parts kind of to the industry as well. And I was blown away by this. The music, the light show. It was a whitewood, and it sat in a dolly, Bally dolly cabinet, which is a bit weird because.
So it's weird to think that this 8 Ball Deluxe, 8 Ball Beyond is like a much more finished product. So they've already got the idea to see what it looks like.
TNA had no art at all. In fact, it was the only thing TNA didn't have.
That's what I've always seen with homebrews, typically of the old days stuff. That playfields. I'm part of a strictly custom pinball group, and a lot of the time, artwork is just secondary to everything else.
But I think that's an interesting take on. It's probably a discussion for another time. But TNA doesn't really need a theme for me. It's music and it's a repetitive, you know, sequence that you have to repeat. But it could basically be anything. It doesn't need graphics. I think the whitewood on that would play just as well with the light show and just be almost more simple in some ways. But yeah, I mean, the challenge of something like 8 Ball is you've got to tie that theme together really coherently, which I think is an added thing that he's had to do.
And actually, on Friday the 13th, I don't know if you saw it, but they were on In Before the Lock, which our good buddy Dave Stumbler is the co-host. Actually, watch on Monday night, because I think he's announcing the next big thing that he's already sold thousands of. Yeah, it's so the guy who developed it. I'm trying to remember his name. I think is it Harry? I might be wrong on that, but yeah, I mean, Friday the 13th again. It looks like a finished game. It played really well, shot really well. When I was playing it, there was a couple of issues with it. I think they had to reboot it, but other than that, it was you know, and actually. It was one of the things, right? 8 Ball Beyond played all weekend, and it didn't have flipper fade, and you could hit all the shots, right? So if some guy in his garage can do it, hey, come on, pinball manufacturers, let's get our shit together, please, because there really should be.
It sounds like to me that maybe they're using coils that just overheat too easily, right? They need to build maybe bigger coils in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole system has to, you know, you have to think about the whole system and the way that it does pulsing, and it's not a simple thing like just turn the power up or that. There's you can and if it was JG people would have fixed their issues years ago, right? So it took them a while, but talking to some of the Stern guys, it's not a trivial thing to get this right, but when you do get it right, it makes a massive difference. For me,
Then I mean, I'll give you an example though. I think it was Godzilla or one of them. It was like the coils were like stretched to the limit. So when normally sometimes you go into a Stern diagnostic menu, you can adjust the power.
Yeah.
The threshold for the power is basically at maximum.
Yeah.
You can't. There was no upper limit. It was like, no, that's it. That's what it's got. So I do wonder sometimes they're undersizing the coils and they're driving them that much harder. If you maybe used a bigger coil and drove it less.
Could it not also be the fact that Spike 2's all tech now, really old tech? Spike 3's due, and that's going to handle all this a lot better. I'm not saying it is.
It's not as old as WPC, and I don't get I don't get flipper fade on my
yeah, true.
Right? For me, the issue in Spike 2, and I think Stern will fix this, right? So Stern came out, and we talked about this in our podcast. They've come out with this new bushing, right? And I have put that in a few games. I basically cleaned out Pinball. Pinball Life got them in. I ordered all that they had, and I've started to replace them on my games. And it let me tell you. So, you mentioned Godzilla. I've changed them on Godzilla. So I had the Pain Monk flipper fans. I pulled them out. You do not need them anymore.
So you're suggesting that the issue is down to friction?
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, if you've got a lot of poor friction, and you've seen the bushing, and you've also think about what are those flippers that everyone's buying? They're like diamond flippers or whatever.
Precision flippers.
I bought some of them while I was there.
When you look at them, one of the thing, and I said this before, the bushing is like this nice machined aluminium part.
Yeah, it's milled metal, basically. Yeah.
Right. That is this, in my mind, as an engineer, that's the secret to the power of that. Yeah, the flipper's made of metal, but it's like torque and BHP. So the flipper being made of metal helps it move faster, but the torque in it is coming from that bearing, right? That bushing rather. And in my mind, Stern they've changed changed to this kind of I forget the name of it. It's driving me nuts now, but it's a different type of plastic. It's a much more. You just tell by touching it that it feels more expensive.
So I think the original was nylon, right?
Yeah, and I think they've moved to no. I think it's still nylon, but it's like a different. I don't know, a different type of nylon. I don't know anything about plastics, but anyway, the outcome is that this has definitely made a difference. The first game, and actually, if you go on, like, if you picked up one of the new Stranger Things, the re-release that they've done, it came with that game, and actually at Indisc, they had one there, and I was hitting the drop targets, and the ball was smacking bang off because it was hitting the drop targets.
That's the biggest thing I hate about drop targets. Sometimes if they hit too hard, they don't register the hit; they just risk it.
And you're getting this all the time. And actually, they finally, I don't know if they did, but I don't know if they fixed the drop target, so they dropped the power back in the flippers. But they solved it, and it turns out it's this bearing because they had it up, and I was looking at it thinking that's different. Anyway, sorry, that was just a kind of a sidebar, but. I mean, the other game I played Saw, which was as Colin said, a partial wind, whirlwind remake. They made a good reuse of the kind of fan bit, but once you'd seen that it was, once I recognized I didn't actually initially recognize it as a whirlwind retheme. Someone mentioned it to me, and then when I saw it, all I could see was whirlwind. And being the Pat Lawler fan that I am, that was a kind of an almost immediate turn off. I don't know what it was. It was like this doesn't. I don't know. It was okay, but it had a few challenges. And they had. I don't know if you guys played Mech Warrior.
That's one pin I didn't play. Didn't appeal to us. But just going back to Saw and Friday the 13th, I cannot remember, but one of them two. The guy had even done the very first ever 3D mode on his screen, And then Stern released Jaws, and he was absolutely gutted. So he took the footage from either Friday the 13th 3D or Saw 3D. I used it in a mode, and you had to wear the glasses, and then Jaws dropped before the show.
Oh,
he was gutted. He says, I was the first one to do it, and they took all his glory. That's how deep they went. So he had modes. I'm sure it was Friday the 13th, but he had modes from every movie, as well as the 8.
There's a lot of them.
8 original. Yeah, there's a lot of them, but he had modes for each one. So you would play, it would say Friday the 13th, part 3, Friday the 13th, part 4. You know, it would have each movie in a mode, and it would show you the footage from it. I mean, they'd never get away with the assets. It would cost them a fortune to bring that in.
It is Friday the 13th that had 3D, not Saw.
Yeah.
Just look at it again. Friday the 13th, Saw. They've all got great pinside pages with a lot of detail. I mean, actually, the Friday the 13th one. Just again, I quickly scanned these on the way back. I mean, it's got several evolutions of this game before he got it to where it was. And it, you know, the whole story of how he built it. It's when you look at the work involved, you know, this is I don't know, almost 2 years worth of work by the looks of it. It's mightily impressive to see how much effort's gone into it.
I think that's one of the things as well. We've sort of touched on it, but I think that's one of the great things about TPF is you can chat to these guys. You know, they're there.
Yeah.
You chat to the guys that have worked on it. Like Cole mentioned, you've got all the people we know, and you know, the sort of celebrities within the pinball world. But here it's, you know, chatting to these guys. What have you been through to make this? And it's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys ever talked to the Pinball Amigos at Pinfest. You know, I spoke to them, and they, you know, they were telling me about their game, and you know, I thought it was cool, but I kind of felt their games were more novelty than pinball to some extent, because yeah, I think it was one that had this kind of big house on it. I can't remember which game it was, but you know, it was hard to see how you would translate some of those Pinball Amigo games into a sellable game. Whereas with these games, you know, Friday the 13th, Motorhead, 8-Ball Beyond, I could easily see them becoming games. Again, price points and details to be worked out, but you know, I was quite impressed by the readiness of how where these games were. Never, you know, again, being at a few of these shows over the years, the homebrew section always felt like frustration to me because things weren't quite where they should be. This was a definite step forward, and actually pretty much everyone that I've spoken to that was at the show, you know, their big plus point was very much around the homebrew section.
Yeah, I'd agree. And then I think, you know, some other things I wanted to mention is just going back to what I remember saying on the previous time we spoke, what I was looking forward to was just wandering around with a beer, you know, soaking up the vibe, playing some games, chatting to some people. And that totally was the case, lived up to expectations. Like you just get a beer, wander around, you meet a few people, you bump into them. You know, at one point, actually, I managed to go up, I think me and Davey somehow got invited up to like some sort of penthouse suite sort of party that was going on where they had some pinball machines up there, and it was like, you know, a bit quieter and you could chat to some other people. And
that's Game Exchange. Yeah, it does that every year.
Yeah, so that was really cool. That felt pretty neat. And
he's a really good guy, JJ.
Yeah, lovely people up there. And I think that was the thing I really enjoyed is just meeting other people like us. And again, I think I said this before, that I was really hoping to meet some people that I'd sold mods to and stuff. And it was like you'd meet people and be introduced as like, oh, this guy does Godzilla, and it's like, oh, you're the Godzilla guy, and it's like, you know, but there's worse things to be known for, I suppose. But and then you're just chatting to people, and just lovely people, you know, from all over America. And when they hear you're from England, they're like, oh my God, you came all this way. And then you sort of, you know, I surprisingly got asked about the royal family quite a few times.
How weird. Yeah, you know, next door neighbors, right?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. They kept saying, so what's going on with Kate? I was like, who?
Your
Princess Kate.
You're
So
to install your mod on their Godzilla.
yeah, exactly. So it was, yeah, it was really nice. I thought the people that I met were just lovely, and just, you know, again, chatting about pinball, and then you gradually talk about other stuff, like, you know, just you know, holidays or wherever you're going, and it, yeah, really, really lovely in that respect. And that was one of my big takeaways. I was interested to know how friendly it would be, and that's one of the reasons I would love to go back as well, and we'll hopefully go back next year. It's just to soak up that vibe again.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much of the group, I think the overwhelming vibe is we're going back next year, for sure. Look, I mean, so we're kind of running out of time here, and we've taken a lot of your time. Really appreciate that. I think, I mean, we did some other stuff. We went, a bunch of us went to the some gun place, and honestly, there was probably, we went to this shop where there was probably more guns in this shop than the entire gun collection in the UK. I mean, I kid you not, right?
I kind of see some. I don't think there's any mini guns in the UK.
No, I mean,
even have Gatling gun. You could fire a Gatling gun.
I mean, it was scarily insane, right? And it's kind of funny because I mean, I did a bit of gun shooting at Orlando, where they kind of cater for tourists, right? But here, this was like, no, we're Texas and we're armed, and if you screw with us, we'll shoot you. That, you know, that's the kind of, and by the way, you know, crime's pretty low in Texas, so you know, you might argue that it works. Of course, there's, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm not a gun advocate by any means, but just the culture of it. And so Colin and I were there, and you know, everyone's like, oh, let's get an Uzi, let's get an AK-47. I was like, let's just try the little guns first, and let's see how we get on. And if we like the little guns, we'll go to the big guns, right? So we kind of split up into two groups, and they take us through all this training, which is actually pretty good. But what was clear was like Texas, much more like guns, much more of a business, whereas in Orlando, when I went to the gun club there, they were like geared up to sell to tourists. It was very, very different. And you know, I think in Texas they expected probably a level of knowledge better than what they catered for in Orlando. And I think one of the guys had done it in Vegas and had, you know, felt the same thing. Anyway, we take a couple of guns in, buy some ammo. I think we spent $300-400, I can't remember, somewhere around that for the whole group, and you know, we fired off a bunch of rounds. Davey Bishop, God bless him, nearly killed us all.
He didn't point the gun at you guys, did he?
Dangerous
Or crazy like that.
Sorry, Dave. I mean, we had all the names for him. You know, in these places, you know, because of the nature of it, if you point a gun the wrong way,
yeah,
standing there, he'll just shoot you.
No, the best part about this was I've been to a gun range in Orlando many years ago.
Yeah.
You go to the counter, you say, which gun do you want in the cabinet? And you go, oh, I'll have that one. And he gives you the gun, he gives you a box ammo, and he points you out a door. Now, they take all the guns in and they're all set up. But before that, we had 30 minutes with an instructor who was basically talking to someone who'd never picked a gun up. Whether you pick the gun up or not, he takes you from the beginning.
Yeah.
Now, for those people who's listening to the podcast and they can't actually see this, but that meant always pointing. So if Neil's the person in front of us I'm chatting to show him the other side of that gun, he would turn all the way around and come round to show you the other side of the gun. Not go like this.
Point at you.
So, number one, so there was something like 3, 4, 5 important things you must do.
Yeah.
And number one, never, ever point this gun anywhere other than a space that's not occupied. And he says, I'm using that socket on the wall. I'm always going to point in that. So if he's going to talk to someone over here, he's not going to turn around and show the guns. In fact, he made a point of putting the gun down, walking around behind us, and shown two other guys. And again, he had to turn all the way around to show them the other side of the gun. So this was drilled into us time and time again. We walked in, and Dave, I'll go first, goes over, gets his gun. We'd been showed how to load it, out to cock it, and he puts it in it. And he basically just turns around, and I'm Neil, and he turns around and he says, "Am I doing this right?"
Oh my God.
To which I then dive, almost shit myself.
Oh my God.
I dived out the way, and I said, "Fuck me, Dave. For Christ's sake, what are you doing?" He says, "It's not what you're worried about. It's not loaded. Look." And he's like looking down the chair. Honestly.
He looked down the gun nozzle.
No, gets about the third go he had, he'd emptied the chamber. And in the end, but then you've got to check everything and take the ammo magazine out. And he checked it, and he looked, and he could see there was no bullet in that. But he was still intent to say, "Look, there's nothing in." Yeah. And we hiding around the corner, thinking, "Christ!" So he got known as Dangerous Dave after that.
So
Dangerous Dave.
What was hilarious? So it wasn't funny, but it was kind of hilarious. So I'd just done my first bit of shooting, and I was turning around, and all I see is Colin in
the dirt,
shorts and his moustache going, "Ah!" and it was like, and all this kerfuffle, and I'm like, "What the hell?" And then of course, Dave comes round, and who else was in your group? Scott. Well, Scott was in your group, right? And,
yeah.
And then Paul and Anne, they're all kind of shuffled off to the side. And I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" And then I see him, and I'm like, "Whoa, Dave!" It was hilarious. And then I mean, literally, the guy went over. He had a word with him twice, didn't he?
The first time he looked over, and he was like, and the second time he was almost crying because I turned around and I says, "Mate, I almost shit myself." And it must have been just the English way I said it, but he was actually pissing himself. He says, "I've never heard anything as funny in my life." But he says, "I know exactly where you're coming from, because the amount of times they turn around to me and say, 'Am I doing this right?' while pointing the gun, trying to cock it at him." And you basically get rejected out of them places. They'll not take that, Guns are taken from you, and you eject it out.
So were the people who, I was going to say, were the people who managed the area then, did they see that? Did they see David do it?
They did, and
I think they saw me flying across the room first of all. I thought, "What's going on here?"
I'm pretty sure the guy had a word with him twice, and I think on the second time he was like,
no more warnings.
Yeah, but as it turned out, we ran out of bullets anyway, so it was kind of a bit less.
Talk to me though briefly, because I know we've got to finish this off very soon. But what was it like firing the weapon then?
The first time you shoot this little gun, and they give you something like a 22, and you shoot again. For people who's watching this, they'll not see this, but you see Arnold Schwarzenegger holding this Desert Eagle 50 caliber with one hand while pointing backwards at a helicopter, and he's going boom, 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 boom. You've got a 22, and the kick it gives you've got to place one foot, and he showed us exactly how to shoot, how to overlap your hands, how to put your back foot out, because that's going to kick you. And then we went to a 38, and I was like, bloody hell's bells, the power that went through your body. And two doors next to us, there was a guy with a fully automatic assault rifle with this big, huge, it looked like a massive bean can of ammo dangling out the bottom. That must have had something like 40 shots in it. And he had his 14-year-old son shooting it while he held his back, and he was going, boom, boom, boom. The sound of this thing was like the biggest firework going off.
I mean, it wasn't actually. I think it was a 38 as well. It wasn't a big gun, but
that big bullets. I seen the bullets.
The bullets were about that long, and we were shooting 9mm 22s and 38s, But I was in the cubicle next to him, and I'm shooting, and all of a sudden I hear this boom. It was like that scene from RoboCop where everyone's shooting, and then RoboCop
and he's firing his gun.
gun.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "What the hell?" But I tell you, this is the thing about the culture. This kid, what, he was 10, 11, maybe 12.
I think he was about 12, 13, something like that.
Yeah, and but he also had his daughter there, who I reckon was 7, maybe 8, and she did not enjoy it at all. I mean, she was crying, but you saw this was this family being indoctrinated into the gun culture of
Gun
Texas,
culture, yeah.
right? And I was just watching this thinking, holy shit!
He can't drink, but he can fire a gun.
Yeah, I mean that's how ridiculous.
And you didn't want him drinking firing guns.
Yeah, no,
I think that happens.
But before we went in, there was a guy. They've got this this kind of belt driven gun, the
minigun.
A minigun, and this guy bought. I think it was $200 to fire it, right? So this guy does.
It was $500 or $600, and you got about 500 rounds that lasted all of 7 seconds.
Yeah, but this is funny. The guy gets it and he fires it. He did not hit one shot on target. All of them missed. He couldn't control it.
Crazy.
So at the end of it, I went to Paul Silverpearl on the forum. I said, "So you're ready for a big gun now, then, Paul?" And he's like, "No, I've had enough."
Oh, I bet it hurts the wrist and everything, right?
We literally went in with handguns, but we could have gone in. I mean, they had fully automatics. They had sniper rifles. You could have shot wherever you want.
If you play Call of Duty, they had every weapon. You know, they had, I've had that P90. You could get from a grease gun, from a World War I grease gun, right up to the latest, right through your Kalashnikovs, everything. But this guy who was firing this thing with his son, the guy turned around and says, "Your time's up on the range," because these are members of this club.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Is it okay if I just fire them off?" He says, "Yeah, but don't smoke up the whole gun range." Yeah. And then he picked it up, and I've got video footage, and he just went, boom, 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 boom. And it was just unbelievable to see. Unbelievable. Crazy.
So the last thing I have to say, Texas barbecue.
Oh, wow, like off the scale. Well, we went back a couple of times, didn't we? What was it called? Hardy 8, I think we called it.
It is phenomenal food. I mean, I literally put on before I went to Texas, I was a thin guy. It is insanely good. Look, maybe a little bit pricey, but worth everything.
What would you say the people were like, though?
I didn't think it was pricey, to be honest. It was just pricey when you went.
I mean, I'd put that as one of the best steaks I've ever had, and it wasn't expensive.
The steak was phenomenal, but and then the barbecue. I love they do this kind of spicy sausage. I could eat it forever, basically. But yeah, I mean, Hardy's always a great place. I went there twice, I think, during the whole thing. One with you guys, one with the Triple Drain guys, and it's just amazing food. And look, I think let's draw a line there, guys. But look, here, I mean, I think the short message is, first of all, there's some, me and I think the only other guy that's kind of been to Texas, Fresh, Paul from the forum. I think Tony went one year. But I've been saying, like, if you want to really go to a great gig, and also take a bit of time off, bring your family. You talk about your family. You hire a car and drive around. There's a lot to drive around and see if you want to go a bit further down. Andy from Andy Foster, he does that. I think he drives around kind of Elvis Land and Dolly Land, where I think he's a bit into that, and then drives up. There's lots you can do. It's a great show, organised by some great people. And I think I've been going since 2016, I want to say, and it's been running a long time, and it's a fantastic show. A few of us are going to Chicago later this year, Expo, which is more an industry focused show a little bit, because you're kind of close to all the factories. And actually, I'm quite excited because all the factories are opening their doors. It's not, I don't think they've all done that. So I've seen Stern's factory a few times. I've seen JGP and American Pinball, but I always wanted to go to CGC because I think they've been in that factory since the Bally days. So, I kind of wonder if there's hidden treasures in this place.
Can I just say on Chicago, I've been to Chicago, but not for the pinball thing. I went to Chicago Marathon for the wife. Chicago as a place doesn't hold up to Texas. I found Texas
I agree.
friendly, clean. You could chat to anyone. I chat to anyone anyhow. But my number one question when I got in a taxi after all this gun culture was, are you carrying a gun? And they would say, of course I'm carrying a gun.
Exactly.
And we got in with this 18-year-old girl and I said, can I just ask you, are you carrying a gun? She says, no, but I should be. It's like everyone carries a gun there, but in a safe kind of way. You don't feel threatened. In Chicago, every night I was going to bed hearing gunshots. I was getting up in the morning to the news with how many dead were that day. Now, I'm not putting people off Chicago. I'm just telling you how I found it, right? Every morning, somebody was shot dead.
Ticket sales and flights to Chicago have suddenly sold out, Colin, after that.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get cheap digs.
Just to qualify that a little bit. So, look, we're in Texas. We're in Frisco, which is probably, I don't know, 20 miles outside of Dallas. You were in downtown Chicago, right in the center of town. Where Expo is kind of, I don't know, maybe 30 miles away from Chicago. So you're in Chicago land, as they call it. You're in Illinois, but actually you're much more close to O'Hare Airport than you are to Chicago. So
it's a bit like saying you're in London and then you go to Croydon. Is that kind of thing?
Yeah, without the stabbings. So it's kind of upbeat. Look, I'm going to draw a line there, guys, because it's late. We spoke a lot.
Cheers, man.
Huge thanks to Paul and Colin. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All the guys that were there. It was a great gig, really enjoyable. I mean, the other thing is we didn't cover this, but I think everybody bought an insane amount of gear and brought it back. There's just so much. That's the other great thing is there's a lot of stuff there that you can see and buy and take home. And also some prototypes. Like there was one thing I really wanted to get for my Jaws. They had this kind of apron that looked amazing, but they only had the prototype there. But I now know I like it enough that I might order it. So, but yeah, look, great show. Thanks everyone for coming. We'll be back next month, and we're starting to come up to, it's kind of weird because last year at Texas Pinball Festival there's this kind of mad crescendo of all these games, and then it went quiet whilst we waited for them to kind of materialize, and some of them have only just materialized. Like in fact, Labyrinth hasn't really got here yet, for example. It'll be a bit of the same, and then but let's see what goes on. Rumors of DPX's game Alice in Wonderland being announced any moment, so we might have some news about that. But and I've fixed my Cactus Canyon, which because the part managed to arrive. For those of you that asked what happened to it, so I nicked a part out of it for Pulp Fiction and then replaced it. That's it from me. And my great partner.
Yep, thank you very much, guys. Again, for showing today. The only thing I wanted to just ask one last question to Cole. Are you going to do your plastics now? Or are you going to collect yours?
I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm going to have my tea. This has run out far too long. I haven't even had anything to eat.
You need to fix your clock as well, man. The time on it's way wrong. Anyway.
Is it?
It is, yeah. It's like about half an hour out.
Oh, it's daylight saving or something.
No, it's not. It's the time's just completely wrong on it. I thought it was daylight savings, but it's definitely
it's out by 20 minutes. Yeah.
Anyway, adios, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. Click subscribe, like, give us feedback, tell us about what you want to see, and we will see you on another podcast soon. Thank you.
Cheers, man. Good night, guys.
5, 4, 3.